The following is a presentation of Tuning into Sci Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television.
I'm winging this. So welcome everyone to another live Tuning into Sci-Fi meetup. I am Wendy Hembrock.
I'm Brent Barrett.
And I'm Kevin Batchelder.
And it looks like blue is the color for this show, which is awesome. Love it. And we're going to go around the table and talk about kind of whatever we want to. Brent, do you want to start us off?
I can, but I'm probably going to steal Kevin's, but maybe not. He probably has something else to talk about. But I'm really excited by this most recent news that we got about the casting for Buffy the Vampire Slayer reboot. And I'm taking it that Ryan Kira Armstrong, who was on Skeleton Crew, kind of one of the leads. There were several leads, but she did a great job in that show. I think she's like 15 right now, going to be 16, something like that. And she was cast, and you're right, Kevin, there was this great video call I watched at the bottom of the article. And actually, we should probably paste the link to the article in case folks haven't seen it.
Got it.
But I'm going to paste it. I already did it. Sorry. There's a great video there where Sarah Michelle Gellar's calling her and telling her that she's got the part. And it's really exciting. And she calls over her father, and I had to look up her father because he looked familiar. And sure enough, he's in like 1,000. He's an actor. He's in like 1,000 character roles in all sorts of different shows. So he is somebody I've probably seen many, many times. But it's great to see her cast of this. I loved her performance in Skeleton Crew. And Kevin, you'll have to tell me, because I didn't read the article in great detail. I went straight to the video. Is this for the role of Buffy? Or is this a continuation / reboot where it's going to be a different Slayer?
As far as I know, at that point, that's to be.
Uh-oh. We're losing Kevin. The internet is a terrible.
Mystery.
Yeah. Kevin, we lost you.
Am I back?
Yeah, you started answering the question
now.
and you froze for a while.
I
It's
know
still
exactly
to be
why.
determined, right? Oh, he's frozen again.
But I thought I heard him say he knows why.
He knows why, and then he froze again.
So maybe he's fixing it.
Well, if anybody in the audience knows. Okay, Kevin, you're back.
Am I back?
You're back.
You're back now again.
Note to self: do not launch Variety.com links
No.
when you need bandwidth, because
No.
it's worse than TV Line. Then it brings up 27 spinning ads.
Yeah.
CPU on my computer do not like that.
You
Sorry,
said
gang.
something about it not being known, right? They don't know the answer to that yet?
I don't believe it's been shared with us as viewers yet,
Okay.
from what I've been reading.
I just got the impression from the way Sarah Michelle Gellar was saying it that it's for Buffy, that they're starting over again. And she's going to be the new Buffy, but I don't know. Unless that's written somewhere as fact.
I
can't
would hold that thought. I still think we need to get some confirmation on that.
I would love to see the story told again from a new, younger cast. That would be awesome. I would be all for it.
From the beginning?
Yeah, why not? I'm cool with that.
Well, it doesn't mean it has to tell the same stories.
Yeah, always,
it's just
alternate universe, different story.
That would be interesting.
That's what I'm hoping for. What do you think, Wendy?
Hellmouth in Cleveland.
Isn't it
They talk
already?
about it all the
Yeah,
time,
they
right?
did. They did.
No,
Yeah.
but they talked about it all the time. We never saw it.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I was thinking, I don't know, because this was several months ago, but I was thinking we were starting at a different point in time. Like this was not a remake. This was a continuation somehow.
Right. It says that she's going to be cast opposite returning star Sarah Michelle Gellar. You assume Sarah Michelle Gellar is coming back as Buffy, so I guess it's a continuation. It does say a new Slayer with Gellar appearing in a recurring role as Buffy. Okay. The article does say that it's a continuation. This is a new Slayer, and Sarah Michelle Gellar is coming back as Buffy to recur in the show. Okay.
I mean, one thing they'll need to kind of explain is what happened to all the other Slayers.
Yeah.
Because all of the quote potentials became Slayers. So,
Mhm.
but it
by the way,
seemed
Buffy
to be.
spoilers.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, sorry. That's
Warning.
20-year-old
20
show.
years ago. That's not a spoiler. It is known. No, I was just thinking that was always one thing I was curious about, was how would they be able to start creating more Slayers after the potentials that, they kind of used up all the magic in that one go.
Yeah, and did anybody read the comics? I read a little bit of the comics, and they continued the story after that. So I wonder if this will treat the comics as canon, or if it's going to give an alternate take after the finale episode of the series. I don't know, but I'm excited.
I only read 1 or 2 of the comics.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I wonder if any other living characters will return. I'm not going to give them the spoilers about who dies in the final episode, including one of my favorites.
Audience, they're speculating about some of the other folks who might come back, like
Eliza,
Faith,
yeah.
or I think Felicia Day's character lived.
She survived, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Willow, of course, yeah. But one of my favorites didn't, but that's okay. I can live with it. I can survive. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Anya?
Yes, Anya.
Yeah,
I didn't want to spoil them, Wendy.
they got to blaze their path.
You're the one who set the rule about, if it's been 20 years.
Oh, I was Kevin, but that's okay.
Spoiler anymore.
I was just having fun.
That's fine. That's fine. It is an old show. I'm sure everybody knows.
Yeah. No, I think that they're going to have to blaze their own trail. So while we'd all love to see several of the characters we loved, I'm suspecting that'll be my gut tells me highly unlikely, especially where Sarah Michelle Gellar is only a recurring character. It's not like she's going to be in every episode. So, and as comments are mentioning in the chat, Eliza Dushku has kind of stepped back from acting now. She's much more active in community stuff here in the Boston area and doing family things. So, doesn't mean she won't, but she hasn't been involved
unlikely
for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, having this news come out is, it makes everything very real. I think for me, because up till now, as we know, for many years, it's just been talk, and it certainly looked like it was going to start with all of the stuff coming from Sarah Michelle Gellar. But now that we kind of have this, this to me just takes it to a whole new level as far as reality kind of coming for it.
What do you think of Fandom Girl's question, Kevin? Or will that lag your system if you look at the chat?
No, I got the chat right there. I'm fine there. Like I say, I won't do any big website lookups. What if they change some lore? And it's going to come down to implementation. We say this all the time on our podcast when it talks about shows that are coming. One of our big things is I need to see a trailer. So we can have fun speculating for I don't know how long until we get a premiere. But since I respect that SMG is involved, I'm going to trust, unless something comes along that breaks that trust or makes me doubt that. So I'm having fun myself, not speculating too much.
It is an interesting question, though, on the continuation front. If they're casting her, Ryan, as the lead opposite Sarah Michelle Gellar, they're calling her the lead. That would imply that there is a central Slayer figure. So that question that I think Wendy raised too comes into play is like, what happened to the other Slayers that became, the potentials that became Slayers? Are they now gone? Did the spell wear off and she's the next only natural Slayer that's still around? Or, how is she the star? What is going to set her up to be the star Slayer? Don't know.
Yeah, but it could just be a situation of focusing on this Slayer and what she goes through. Doesn't mean there aren't other Slayers. It just may not be that many in this story.
Okay.
It's all on what they focus on, right?
Okay. Yeah.
They can keep that lore and all of it's still canon, but they can just choose to, shall we say, micro focus on her.
Yeah.
Well, to go back to that though, it'll be interesting to see how she becomes the Slayer, because at the end of the original show, it sure seemed like there was no more mojo left to make more Slayers, and she's too young to have been
In
one
that
of
group,
the
right.
original potentials.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you're right. Of course. That makes total sense, right? Because only the potentials who were alive were made Slayers when Willow cast the spell. She was born after that, so she's a natural born, if you want to call her that, natural born Slayer. And maybe she's the only natural born Slayer that's come up since that spell was cast. That would make her a central figure, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, lots of possibilities. We'll have to see.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Exciting, though. It was exciting, really.
That's what I want to talk
It is
about.
exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, next person. Go.
Okay, Kevin. Do you have something now? Did Brent?
Well, since I won't name names, but yes, someone did steal my item. But I'll only
blame Wendy. She let me
in
go
a good
first.
Way. I should have told her ahead of time. Pick me. Well, yeah, and the other thing, and I think maybe this live show is a good spot to touch on this more than our regular podcast, is I wanted to talk a little bit and get some of your opinions, and the folks who are here in the audience right now with us, for Andor, the end of season 2.
Spoiler territory or not spoiler territory?
No, I don't want to go into spoilers because again, it literally just dropped a couple days ago.
Okay.
But just in the continuing conversation about how slow some of us have felt it is, and while others think that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, because it's taking its time. And it was interesting. There were a couple of comments on Discord, Brent, and you had an interesting reply in that thread. So that's why I wanted to kind of even more so bring this up now.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that I thought the last 6 episodes of the season were definitely, better paced. And you made a comment to the effect that that may not be totally the case, but at least they were more interesting or something to that. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
That's essentially what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate,
which,
or you
again, was yeah, no, that's why I want to open up for conversation, because to me, I use the phrase that better paced because I was definitely more interested. I wasn't bored.
Yeah.
And while it didn't have to be action left and right, from a viewership point of view, you had me very interested in what was happening, and therefore I consider that a better pace, meaning you're not, making me want to look at my phone or whatever. And it was interesting too, because I saw in an interview, goodness, it was just earlier today, and I didn't make any notes on it, but it was, I don't think it was in the Andor universe or anything, but it was another writer / showrunner talking about how nowadays, streaming days especially, streamers and networks are giving writers and showrunners more and more notes about distracted viewers. You need to repeat things more often. You need to, make people have multiple opportunities to catch up on why a character did something. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's recaps at the beginning of every episode, as we often get anyway, or just characters having to talk again about why something happened. Because this is the norm now. People don't watch TV in a dedicated fashion as much, which again, I think is a little bit of a chicken and egg discussion, because I think a lot of them are paying attention because you're not making the stories engaging enough for me to want to pay attention for the full, 42 minutes or whatever it is. But I did find it interesting that again, and the showrunner here did mention that, yes, he wanted to reward viewers who were paying close attention to everything, which, as he pointed out, could make it seem like at times things were moving slow. He wanted viewers that were going to be paying attention and be rewarded for not missing some things that came out only once in conversation or whatever. So I find it interesting that we have now just such a divergence. Maybe it was always there and I wasn't noticing it, of shows now that are either like this, that literally will take and it, in my opinion, insanely long time to play out some story elements, and others that are just going for the bang, 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 bang actiony thing. And it maybe that's a good thing now that we actually can have that, whereas on network TV you couldn't get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
People, they would give up way too fast. So, so my point though is in some ways I appreciated reflecting now on the whole story being complete, if you will, and learning a little more about some of their approaches. I have a better, I guess, understanding of why they made some of the choices. But I still don't think, for me, I could say I'd want to, like, for example, rewatch the entire series. It wasn't that engaging to me to want to go through it. But I give them credit that, the at least in the final 6 for me as a viewer, I'll be giving much higher ratings. I enjoyed them more. I can appreciate maybe some of that stuff earlier, but and it's almost like I wish there was, how we get ratings.
Mm-hmm.
TV 14 and TV anime and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we should have like a pacing rating for shows nowadays to let you know coming in, we're going to take our goddamn time. So plan to do that, because at least for this guy as a viewer, that's the thing that seems to be throwing me off the most in the last year or so with things, is expecting one way and getting another and then being bored.
Yeah,
that's interesting. The thing about distracted viewers, and you need to keep telling people who's who, that is not that you're blaming the audience for not understanding your crappy writing. I mean, that to me, because we have recaps. The recaps always throw the red flags of, remember this because we're going to talk about it today. It's really obvious. People are not that distracted, in my view. I don't agree with that take on things. But the interesting thing for me about Andor, and of the 3 of us, I definitely liked Andor overall more than either one of you did. I think I also have a higher tolerance for I'll call it activity that is not directly involved in the through line story. And generally my preference is that it's character developing activity. And in Andor, I guess it was supposed to be character developing, but sometimes it was supposed to be explaining plot that was going to get connected, because from a bigger picture, this is supposed to be these little elements that all turned into the rebellion, and how it was very unstructured in how you got there, right? And any one of these actions that people did could have had a major trajectory about whether or not there was a resistance or not. It could have all collapsed. It could have been crushed by the Empire. So because for me, looking back, it's like, if I was telling this story about who are the key people to start the rebellion, then I would have had something more about, we got a backstory of Luthen, which I loved that episode. And that was a huge payoff, because he's one of the critical people to establishing the resistance. And it turns out that it wasn't he was always a zealot, that it was him finding Clea and his own shame and complicity about his role in things that connected them together. So they
just a heads up, Wendy, we're kind of going into spoiler territory.
I'm telling all these spoilers.
Yeah, people haven't seen it. You kind of want to.
I will stop.
Just knowing we got backstory on him is good enough, I guess.
Yes. So, but like, we didn't get that with Mon Mothma. Like, we didn't see, what flipped her switch, for instance, which you would think in a story that's about the birth of the resistance, you would see that. Yeah. Maybe you could say they did that in Rebels, so we didn't need more of it. I don't know. But I've heard a lot of people talk about, this is the greatest Star Wars ever, and I don't agree with that. No. It's really good. It's really great Star Wars. It definitely, but it's very disjointed for me. And I feel like a lot of these series, they're throwing a ton of money at the set and the costumes and all these details, and it's like, put some more money back into the time to write the characters and those pivotal story connectors, because I just felt like there were a lot of missed opportunities in this show in particular, and knowing that we're not going to get any more of it because of the tie to Rogue One.
Yeah, we already knew. That's not a spoiler. We knew from the beginning that the season would end with the beginning of Rogue One, which it did. But Kevin, to answer your question, or to explain, I guess, what I said, and I Barcroft, by the way, I love your pacing ratings, but I would disagree a little bit with the sitting on the edge of your chair being like high pacing, because sitting on the edge of your chair was how I felt about the last 3 episodes. They were really engaging for me because I think they stayed and focused on, even though it was slow, they spent a lot of time dragging out scenes. It was all about things I cared a lot about. And I was really intrigued and wanted to know what was happening next. I was really nervous about things, and things were surprising me. So the last 3 episodes to me were, I couldn't fast forward them. I mean, that's the best way I can explain it, right? When I watched the first 3 episodes, oh my God, I would have in the background and I would fast forward stuff because I'd get so bored. I'd get angry with it. Like was pointed out by TR there. 3-day weddings, planning and all the wedding episodes and stuff. It's like, come on, I don't care about this. This is irrelevant. And I'm not going to say whether it's irrelevant at the end of the series or not, but it sure felt irrelevant watching it. That stuff bored the crap out of me. But in the last 3 episodes, I wasn't bored. Not that it was fast-paced. Like I said, they still didn't follow the JMS rules of scene writing. The JMS's rule in his script writing book is come into a scene as late as possible and leave as early as possible. That's what he considers good pacing, and JMS writes good paced stuff, so at least with Babylon 5. So I agree with that rule, and this show did not follow that rule at all. They would basically linger and linger and linger, but I cared about what was being said and what was happening. So I never felt the need to fast forward, to look away. I literally couldn't multitask while I was watching the last 3 episodes. I wanted to watch them all and pay attention to them. And to that showrunner, I get what he's saying, but if you're going to focus on a lot of detail that I just don't care about, then it's boring to me. It's not a matter of I'm not paying attention. It's you're showing me stuff I don't care about. I want this. It's a story about Andor building up to Rogue One. I want that story. I don't want all the political stuff. I don't want weddings for 2 episodes. Stuff like that. So the last 3 episodes were great. I thought that they were wonderful. We'll give our ratings when we have the next full episode, but to my mind, they're at least high watch it soons, if not higher.
Yeah, it could be glued to the TV or checking my socials. It could be some of those
FF is one of them. Fast forward.
Because it's about engagement, right?
Yeah,
it's about how
exactly.
engaged you are with it. We had a question in the chat asking about what Star Wars story not done yet do we want to see Disney tackle? Anyone can answer.
Well, Disney's coming up. If you haven't been watching Katie Sackhoff's podcast, you may have missed or paid attention during the recent Star Wars celebration. They're coming out with a Darth Maul series. That's coming up to give more detail on Darth Maul. Apparently, it takes. I'm guessing based on the clips I've seen from the Katie Sackhoff show that it takes place just after whatever they call it, the Battle of Mandalore. When Darth Maul was in charge of Mandalore and then he got kicked out basically and got captured. It takes place after that, but I guess it's going to take place after. I'm guessing after the end of the Clone Wars. When he escapes from the crashing starship. But that's going to be interesting, I guess. I guess I would like to see. I don't know if they can do it, and I'll give one more suggestion, then you guys can chime in. But I would like to see more of what did Luke do and Leia do after Return of the Jedi. We've seen a couple of little tiny kind of flashbacky clips in the Mandalorian universe, but I would like to they'd have to recast probably. I don't think I guess they could do de-aging on some of them. But I'd like to see Luke and Leia. And Leia apparently developed Jedi skills. She was trained by her brother. I would like to see some of that. I'd like to see what happened to those two, because all we get is glimpses in Mandalorian, and then the third trilogy, which a lot of us would like to forget about. And that's all we have.
Kevin?
I don't have any specific characters myself that I've thought on. I did hear an interesting thing that I'll comment on, though, in terms of what I'd want to see is I saw someone doing like a review for the Andor episodes, and again, no spoilers, meaning the end of the season. And they said that they were glad, that they felt it finished strong, and they were also fans of all 2 seasons. But they said they thought it proved that you can have a compelling Star Wars story without having to use lightsabers. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's a perspective I can respect. But for me personally, I want to see lightsabers. Star Wars to me is fun. It is the cool stuff that happens. It is the actiony bits. The naturally a rebellion, and what this story told. I mean, it has to happen. A rebellion doesn't happen overnight, and you don't just have your key players come together, very quickly. So I get that. But would I want to see other Star Wars stories where it's really more of the, shall we say, the backstory, the things that went into what made some of the characters who they were? Not as much as I just want to see some actiony pulp, Buck Rogers / Star Wars stuff.
So the thrilling heroics of the
yeah. I mean, that's
trilogy.
what Star Wars means to me. Not that all this other stuff isn't fine. I don't want to knock it, but I'm saying if you tell me, Kevin, you want more Star Wars, I'm going to say, yeah, give me some cool stuff happening with lightsabers or with different, planets and conflicts and situations like that, rather than, well, when I was 6, I was, I had this happen to me and it forever changed my life.
In defense of no lightsabers,
nice.
Kevin, though, Mandalorian season 1, I don't think had any lightsabers. And it was some of the best Star Wars live action we've ever seen. I think the 3 of us, we really enjoyed first season of Mandalorian. So they don't need lightsabers per se, but I get what you're saying. At least Mandalorian had that multiple planets, adventure, spaceships stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to hang my hat just on having a lightsaber, but
right.
It's that point of a little more of the action, cool factor type stuff rather than a building character story. Yeah.
Well, that's
one of the things that I always hated when people blamed George Lucas for crappy dialogue. Okay, that's not his strong suit, but you know what? That's not what I'm looking for in a Star Wars story, guys. Not what Kevin's looking for. Let me have some fun.
Space opera.
Cliche dialogue.
Yeah.
Space opera. Fun.
Yeah.
Okay?
But cringing. He can do better than cringeworthy.
You know what? Again, I'm trying to get to the core of what's important. I'm not saying it has to be, Lawrence Kasdan and
So it's not Shakespeare. That I get it.
Yeah, I mean that's all I'm saying.
But I think because from the original trilogy, we've gone so far into how this universe has been expanded out that there's a richness that now, that I don't think what we got in those first 3 movies would be even acceptable today, if called Star Wars necessarily. For me, I would love to see a story about the armorer from The Mandalorian. It was kind of centered around that character and sort of what was happening to them pre-Mandalorian. I mentioned this when we talked about Tales of the Underworld or the Underside, whatever it was called, that I'd love to see more Asajj Ventress, the Night Sisters, Dathomir. That was one of the pieces that I was introduced to through the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch and all that. And I find that really interesting because they're a completely different way of engaging with the Force, and what are if it is engaging with the Force, or how this magic works. To me, that's very interesting. I would love to see some stuff about, I guess it's like thousands of years before, with the Mortis gods and the original Force, and how the
Which we might
Jedi
get
started out
in Ahsoka season 2.
long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those things I would love to see.
On-
Someone put in the comments a live Bad Batch.
Yeah, continuing,
which would be cool.
Yeah, it would be cool to see where Omega goes when she's live action. I want to see live action Omega, and we might still. Dave Filoni might introduce her in one of his upcoming works. On the topic of the armor, though, Wendy, I am still holding out hope for that theory, that fan theory that seems to have a lot of basis in possibility, I guess, which is that the armor is a character that we have met before. Meaning, specifically, that theory is that the armor is Sabine Wren's mother. That Sabine Wren's mother didn't die when the planet was attacked, as Sabine feels, because her father, she thinks her whole family was killed when the Empire, purged Mandalore. But that she survived and she became the armor. And this theory, if you ever watch that video, I don't know if I've ever linked to it. I'll try to find it and send a link in the chat. But he goes into great detail about the accent and the belief system and all this stuff that just meshes perfectly and lines right up with Sabine's mother. I just want to see that.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. For some reason, I thought she was much older. It could just because of her manner, and because she is the legacy holder for so many of their traditions.
Yeah, I'm just going by the age maybe of the actor, but if you go by the age of the actor, then it meshes up pretty well with Sabine's mother's age. So
yeah. And I mean, I would love if they just did live action Clone Wars that was good Clone Wars, the stuff from the animated series. That was, a young Anakin, young Obi-Wan, young Ahsoka. I mean, I don't need that as much because I think the Clone Wars animated series stands on its own, but it would be cool. So I see. Oh, I don't know what Droid Tales were. Did you guys watch Droid Tales?
I did not. It's a Lego series on Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw it.
The thing that I liked about Andor was that it was so different. It really was about how do you get this rebellion going, and what does it take to do that, and all the different kinds of people that have to participate. We went from the Cassian Andor to Mon Mothma to all these other people in between. And I like that idea a lot. I probably will rewatch this because I actually did rewatch the first episode already because of I'll just say an artifact that was presented. I wanted to go back and see because I did not remember where that had come from, but I went back to see.
When she brought it out of the case, I agree. I didn't remember that connection either.
But it's really it was really significant, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, it flipped that whole scene.
Some other time in spoilers.
Bringing that out flipped the whole scene. From a maybe she doesn't know to she knows.
Yeah, Nico's comment, I'm going to have to look up. So if I disappear, there was a interesting video today from today or yesterday of on YouTube, Screen Crush. Ryan, I think, does an excellent job looking at movies and TV shows on that channel. And Nico makes a comment here about the Star Wars TV shows and whether or not there's lightsabers, and saying just, whizzy lights to mask the lack of interesting characters. And he did a good job talking a little bit about the Star Wars TV shows we've gotten so far. and how they've tended to be one extreme or the other in terms of it either is creating some really good characters or they're leaning too much on the look what we did with special effects side of things. And it really, we probably want a good balance of both is what we're looking for, is having a little bit of the ooh, ah, while also having characters we want to know what happens to them and what's going to happen. So that was I thought a good observation of looking at some of the content of the different series we've had so far.
Yeah, I think Ahsoka season 1 tried to do that. Probably more than some of the other ones we had recently. I'm not saying it did it perfectly, but I think it tried.
Wendy, what do you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about Andor, so we talked about what I wanted to talk about, but because now I have bonus time, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Foundation season 3 trailer that came out like about a week ago, and it looks really good. But I really like Foundation, and it is a show that also has to navigate the political, and I mean the personal political, not necessarily like the government political aspects of what's going on in the story, as well as battles and intergalactic war that's going to be happening. So this looks really interesting for me. I'm not going to go into any more details because I'm not sure who else watching Foundation, but it's coming back in July too, which is not that far away, which means I'm probably going to do a little Foundation rewatch before.
Cool. I'm not watching Foundation, as you guys know, so I don't have much to say on that topic. So leave it to Kevin and maybe the audience to talk about that.
Yeah, I got off the Foundation train after season 1, so
yeah,
I really can't comment too much there.
I think you could come back because in season 2, one of the main characters really emerges who's driving a lot of the conflict, and it was definitely more story laden than season 1. Season 1 had to do a lot of just building out how things worked in that world.
I think one of the things Ryan from Screen Crush could learn from Andor is how to not repeat the same word twice in a sentence and make it not make sense grammatically in his title. What can Disney learn from the best star?
Come on, everybody has typos. Don't be doing it. Don't be doing
I do
it.
too.
Well,
I do too.
they're trying to rush. They're trying to rush to the presses. They
Yep.
do good copy editing.
Get out there fast.
So someone,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Wendy.
No, I was going off onto a different tangent.
No, I was going to say, speaking of Foundation, I think I'm going to take the plunge and get an Apple TV Plus subscription. I think the more I see of some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and interviews on Murderbot, I'm very curious, and that premieres tomorrow. So I think I might jump back in that pool. So I might be trying out some of the other Apple TV ones soon. We'll see, time permitting.
Well, Silo. I
want to see.
Also,
there's a few I want to see.
Silo, also Severance. I definitely want to check out Severance. And some of the movies that have been on there, so I think I might take that jump soon. So we shall see. But whether or not Foundation will bump up high enough, I don't know yet.
Yeah, TR, it's a great thing. Yeah, I got him into reaction channels. I got Kevin into reaction channels too. But yeah, it's a real time sink, but it's a good time sink in a way because it brings that community back. We used to have that community with in person with conventions, but in forums and things like that, talking about shows and stuff. Having the reaction channels is another great way to do that because you get to see other people reacting to something and watching it for the first time that you know about, so you can talk with them in the comments, and especially the reactors who engage with the comments and go back and forth. I love those people a lot too. Discord is kind of the new message boards. That's correct. Yeah, the new home. Everybody's heading here.
Hmm. Yeah, and you folks here that are here live with us right now are a great example of that, being involved in our Discord and also showing up for these little live soirees that we've done. It's nice to see. I mean, I live off that feedback and seeing that, so
Yes,
appreciate that, folks, very
we,
much.
we appreciate that you come out with little advance notice because, as you've seen,
We don't know when we're doing it.
well-oiled machine.
Speaking
we
speaking
appreciate
of
the spontaneity.
Yeah, speaking of the audience, though, I mean, they've asked a couple of questions. Do they have any other questions for us? Because we kind of talked about three main topics, which is kind of our loose format for this show. Is we talk about three topics we each pick, and then we leave it open for you guys. So hit us with some more questions. It doesn't have to be about genre TV or fandom. It could be about anything. Like, Brent, why do you have this big gap in your mouth where you used to have a tooth? Well, my tooth broke. And I'm getting it.
I couldn't believe you put an actual on-screen mention of that in one of your recent YouTube videos.
Because I felt self-conscious because I'm like, do these people think I just don't care about my tooth? No, I'm getting it fixed. So. It takes a while. It's amazing. When you get an implant, a dental implant, if they don't have enough bone in there, they have to pack some new bone in there, and it takes 3 months for that to heal. Then they have to put the implant in. It takes another 2 months for that to heal. Fortunately, I had enough bone, so we put the implant in right away. But it takes 2 months before I can go to my dentist and have basically a crown put on. But I just have to sit here without a tooth for like another month and a half. Yeah, what is Kevin's shirt? Kevin, what's your shirt?
What's
you
on
see
your
two
shirt,
heads.
Kev? It looks like a Winona.
This is the
Buffy and Winona.
The Buffy Earpers podcast I did for a while. I had a fandom artist created this one as the logo for it.
Neither one of them.
Buffy with Peacemaker and Winona with Mr. Pointy.
Love it.
Oh, so Murderbot, Barcroft says that Murderbot Diaries were novellas. Nice. So that means concise storytelling, I hope. But kudos for Murderbot from our audience.
Yeah, good to see. And no, we didn't get the Buffy Earpers podcast all the way through. Those who were listening, I had a dedicated host who then had to, for real life reasons, step back, and then I had some guest hosts. It was just hard to.
So if somebody wants to guest host with Kevin,
that rolling.
That position's open.
And
someday we'll get back to the community
most
reaction.
Of you know, if you've been listening for a while,
you can do that on your YouTube channel, Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin's got a lot of ideas, not enough time to do them all, is what he has. So have to wait to see.
90s reboot. What was on in the 90s? So gonna have to need. Why does it have to be the 90s? Does it have to be the 90s?
90s. I can't even think back to the 90s. Well, we could say Farscape, yeah. It started in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
Oh, because you were talking about Xena earlier, too. They were talking about Xena, too.
Well, I loved Xena, and I don't know that I would want to watch Xena with anybody but Lucy Lawless playing that character, though. I think it needs another 20, 30 years before I can let go of her as that.
I need to see a list of 90 shows so I can pick from them.
Yeah, I couldn't. I can't go.
I mean,
that.
Sliders was in there. Xena, Buffy, Farscape. I know there's.
I can't think of a 90s show.
Yeah, there you go. Charmed, Pretender.
Charmed,
they
just did a reboot that was horrible on the CW.
Yeah, I know. They tried.
Well, we had Star Trek Next Generation was in the 90s.
Lucy will probably outlive the three of us, man. So we'll never see a Xena reboot then. X-Files? Well, maybe.
X-Files, that's another one. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So just speaking of Lucy Lawless, she's on a great series called My Life is Murder. She plays a cop, a detective, and I want to say it's New Zealand. It could be Australia. Highly recommend it. Totally not genre at all. Um, you know what show I would like to see, and it's not from the 90s. It's Almighty Isis. I think that
From
would
the
be really
70s?
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be
I
cool
liked that
because
show as a kid.
I loved that show as a kid. She was so cool. She was a heroine who wore glasses all the time. She drove a super cool Jeep convertible car. She was a scientist. I loved everything about that character. And I love Egyptian mythology. So now we have so much technology. I think that could be a really interesting show. And, you know, maybe we could expand out the mythology a little bit more. So instead of her just having superpowers, it could, like, you know, I don't know, Stargate it up where there's some rationale behind her powers or the gods or something like that, to give it a supernatural, even more of a supernatural element. Wonder Woman, I want to see some more Wonder Woman movies with Gal Gadot myself.
Gadot, she said many
Gadot,
times. She's
Gadot,
not French.
thank
She's
you.
Israeli. It's Gadot.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, no, I loved Wonder Woman.
I liked her.
And the Bionic Woman. I mean, $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman might be cool too.
Good ones, not the.
Especially if one of them has, like, maybe some of their AI is a little wonky or
they
snarky
have
something
AI.
like
They didn't have it
that.
before. Yeah, they have
but you know, you could make it really highly integrated with their brain and everything now.
Yeah. There is a question here I wanted to answer, but I agree with you on all of those shows. But I just want to dive in real quick with this one question that came up about the show, about the podcast. If we were starting the podcast fresh, would we go with a podcast, you know, an audio podcast, or straight to YouTube? Personally, my opinion, if we were starting something like this from scratch, YouTube would be the platform. There's just so think about it, because the podcast, we struggle. We get thousands of listeners to our episodes. You could get many more from YouTube. You have such a big audience potential with YouTube that you just don't have with the audio podcasts anymore. And YouTube will do the job of, you know, if you have a good topic that has engagement, YouTube will do the job of feeding that to new people who've never heard your stuff before or seen your stuff before. So personally, I say if we started from scratch, we would go with YouTube. So we're dabbling a little bit in it with these uploads, these video uploads, and other things we're doing with YouTube. But yeah, the podcast itself is kind of stuck in the traditional audio, the Tuning Into Sci Fi TV podcast. I don't know, Kevin, Wendy, would we ever pull the plug and just switch to an entirely YouTube format and just drop the podcast format at this point?
I know a couple of podcasters who have done that. They've just decided for effort and concentration, and now with YouTube offering more functionality for audio only.
Mm-hmm. Audio only. I was thinking video. I wasn't thinking.
Oh yeah, no, for us, but I'm just, even if someone just wants to move the platform for how it's distributed, there's ways to do it now with YouTube. But the other thing to keep in mind there, not to be the naysayer, because I'm the new guy with a YouTube channel, is it's only YouTube. What if you do something that gets yourself kicked off YouTube, or the YouTube gods don't like what you're doing, or YouTube itself turns into like Twitter, which at one point was a great community place that got bought by someone, I won't name names, and then the platform itself, now no one wants to be there. So that's the only thing I'd be afraid about if you go to a place that's just one. At least the audio podcast, you can use any device.
Yeah, but it's true of the video podcast too. You could theoretically just upload it to another video streaming platform. You don't have to go to YouTube. You can just switch platforms, or you can multi upload.
Oh yeah, no, you could put it on a website. I mean, you could do a lot of things to it, but the distribution model, as you said, YouTube is so far ahead of whatever's number two,
right?
That, you know, so but the interesting thing on that question though is, you know, when you start something, which we did, this was in 2008. I mean, that was the way to go. Like we said, you know, things evolve and technology moves even faster now. So as long as we're having fun doing it and folks are along for the ride, I guess we'll see what the future brings, you know. I saw someone mention Warehouse 13 in a comment. Sorry, it flew by the screen pretty fast.
Yeah, Fandom Girl.
And I think I stumbled across a video on YouTube. Someone was not reacting to the show, but had like a I don't know, favorite sci-fi series or something, whatever it was. And I saw that, and that was one of those ones that made me stop and go, "Oh man, I love that show." Early seasons, not the final season.
Yeah.
They totally effed that up, but that was a great one. That I wish it was back on the air again. Things like that, and Eureka, and some other fun shows that we had for a while there. I mean, it made me realize too recently, little related tangent. I mean, I can remember, as I suspect many of you that are listening right now, and all of us here on the stage, Sci-Fi Channel would be running multiple original shows. They do one at a time. One of them almost has to finish before they start another one. There's so minimal content from them now. It's shocking that both, to me anyway, that both Resident Alien and Revival are going to be running as new shows at the same time on Sci-Fi. That's like the first time in I think I looked at it like 15, 16 months. They're a shell of what they used to be.
Yeah.
But again, it's a streaming world, and there's now other places to get it. So I'm not trying to be negative on it as much as.
And both will be canceled before the first season is over, Kevin.
So speaking of sci-fi shows, I would like Dark Matter to be rebooted.
The show that
Dark
got
Matter
screwed by Killjoys. No Killjoys. They killed Dark Matter. I hate Killjoys.
They were both good. I loved when they were on
Dark Matter was better
on Fridays. Well,
Yeah,
we can make that its own podcast episode, but they were both excellent.
I just hold a grudge. By the way, Fandom Girl, just to interject with a quick answer to your question. YouTube videos, you say audio is easier to fast forward respects. On YouTube, you can actually add chapter points. Whoever's publishing the video, we could theoretically time code it with every single article and every single review and every single show that we cover with a different time code. Only have to just hover over the timeline or drag it with your finger or whatever, and you can see what the different chapters are and just skip to wherever you want it. It's actually even easier than audio. Anyway, continue.
And I know Wendy will back me up on this with the chatter coming that, it appears most folks in the audience at this moment were more Dark Matter fans than Killjoys fans, which is fine, even though Killjoys is my favorite.
Which is
but
proper.
Wendy, do you remember back at Dragon Con when the Dark Matter cast was there? That was they had some of the funnest panels. Talk about
they had great panels.
Just camaraderie, and the way they got along on a panel was some of the best I've ever seen in 20 years of Dragon Con panels. So,
Chris,
getting a chance to have more seasons with them would have been amazing.
By the way, everybody in the chat agrees with Wendy and me about Dark Matter over Killjoys, by the way. But Chris is saying Killjoys had a sort of ending. Dark Matter
it's
just
a small
ended.
audience sample. Okay?
Dark Matter just ended because they canceled it before it was over.
Yeah,
that's why it had no ending. That's what we're mad about.
No, I know.
So
I'm not arguing, folks.
The other show that I think never got its due, because I thought it was always a solid show, was Sanctuary. Was it Sanctuary? Amanda.
Yeah, Tapping.
Yeah, Amanda Tapping.
Amanda Tapping's show. That could reboot too, I think, because you could kind of either take the same characters or kind of like the Librarians, make another Sanctuary someplace else, throw a bunch of different Scooby Gang in there, and I think you could have an interesting show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one that could be restarted. Yeah, that was a very.
I get it.
That was a show, cutting edge, ahead of its time sort of show anyway, because they had so much green screen and did such a good job with it.
Yeah.
That was one of the first.
Low budget.
Really, yeah.
If they had
that started on remember when that started on the web? That was web only.
That was
a
web show.
series.
Yes, that's right. It was.
Yes.
If they
I
I
remember subscribing to it, paying money to watch it because it was worth it at that time.
If they'd had the volume back then, it would have been made on the volume.
Yeah,
and they could make it now with the volume. So.
Yep. Good stuff.
They keep asking about Lex, Kevin. I mean, it's got a lot of sexy
women in it.
I haven't
watched a lot of it. I know it does. I think I watched an episode or two to sample it. It's one of those ones that just kind of sits there on a list going, someday. But, I haven't got to that. Primeval, yes. Primeval was excellent. Yes, we could. I mean, we could rattle off. folks, when I looked it up for my notes for the new YouTube channel, and thank you to everybody who's been supporting me there, by the way. Guys, how many total shows do you think we've covered on the podcast in the last 17
What do you mean by cover? If you mean looking at our tags,
we at least had we at least had a tag for them on the blog.
2,600.
Which means that's at least one news entry.
2,600. That's my guess.
I'd say like 900.
Wendy, you're damn close. It was just over 900, I believe.
Ooh.
Think about that. To some degree, one of the three of us probably talked about,
Yeah, we used to talk about a lot of shows that we never watched. We don't do that anymore. Now we only talk about the ones that like we're kind of interested in or we might watch.
We mention articles.
In the beginning, we were really
mentioned articles.
About we were everything, even if we weren't going to watch it.
Yeah. And then there's the joke episode where we talked about our show was existing in the 80s and we released a cassette version of our podcast once every 3 months or 6 months. And there were only like three shows to cover.
We had 2 genre shows every season, so we didn't have to release very often.
And we had a zine.
Yeah, articles shouldn't count, but Kevin was asking the number that even included articles, so that's why we were guessing that.
Yeah, that's all I had when I was looking at, raw.
Yeah, if we mention a show in an article or back porch, whatever, we put a tag for it.
We create a tag on the blog, so that's what I had to use as a basis. So it'd be tough to remember what were actual discussion totals because we didn't differentiate that from a tracking point of view. Now, if someone wants to sit down and listen to over 700 podcast episodes and create that, folks,
Well, they could just go read the show notes and see what we talked about in the back porch.
Whatever it might be.
Get somebody to write a program or tell some AI to look at all our show notes and figure it out.
There is probably a way to do it. And Sarah Connor will give us a stink eye if we do that. So watch out, world.
That would be one to fix. That would be a
reboot. Don't get started. Please don't get started.
Replace the canon.
Please don't get started.
That would be a do-over, Sarah Connor, for sure.
How can you have a cast like that and F it up? All right, let's not go there.
I would like Sarah Connor Chronicles done right, honestly. Now, don't get me wrong. Good. The actors were great. I loved them. The cast, like Kevin said, great cast. Premise was great. Second season, a snore fest.
Hot mess.
Just a hot mess, yeah.
Just boring.
Yep.
Uh,
What about Firefly?
No, not again. Everybody wants to see it continue.
It's too soon.
Nobody wants to reboot it. Everyone wants to continue it, but unfortunately not everybody's available and all that stuff. So
yeah.
Well, I saw somebody new, a reactor, watching it again, and it just brought back good memories kind of deal.
Oh, yeah. It's fun to see new reactors to that show.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no more questions, I think we're coming to the end of our allotted time. We're hitting an hour. It's usually what we like to do.
Yeah, we try to do about an hour's worth here. So last call for quick questions, folks.
Cast good. Yep. They're talking about Echo. Oh, well, I'm sorry. There's a reference to Echoes. After show. After show. This is the after show.
This is the after show.
Andromeda. Yeah, Andromeda was a reference. That was a fun show. I mean, it was campy as heck, but it was fun.
Well, you talk about campy. How about the mentioned earlier Cleopatra 2525?
Oh, that was campy.
Yeah. Okay.
Quite the cast, too.
It did. Definitely did.
I think we should start trying to wrap this thing up, guys. Appreciate you all being here.
I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
You do it.
Again, thank you. For those that are here live, we really appreciate it. That makes this even better.
We do appreciate your patience with us as well. As you can see, Brent is an excellent editor of our show, so that this is a more raw version of us. But maybe for folks who weren't here live, it will come out a little bit cleaner. But thank you all. We appreciate you. And let us know your thoughts. Should we, I don't know, come up with a master plan to transition to YouTube, or just keep doing more lives occasionally? Or
maybe I'll make that a poll.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good idea for a poll.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave the.
All right, folks.
I'm going to disconnect, guys, and this is for Kevin and Wendy. Disconnect using the disconnect quietly button. That way, the chat will still remain. These guys can chat for a while if they want, but we're out of here. See you guys.
Okay, learning Discord stuff. All right, folks, take care of yourselves.
I don't want to
Thank
share my
you,
looks,
everybody.
Phantom Girl. No. All right, see ya. The theme music for Tuning Into Sci Fi TV is by Beatnik Turtle, used with permission.